Can you hear me?
¿Me escuchas? Sí.
The board will now reconvene our regularly scheduled meeting for June 21st, 2023. The time, unfortunately, is 6:10. Thank you, Dolphins, for waiting, and others. Dr. McDuffie, do we have a report from closed session? Oh, sorry, excuse me, roll call.
Mr. Lara, Ms. Cabral,
Here.
Mrs. Cordero,
Here.
Mr. Valencia,
Present.
Mr. Hollinshead.
Here. Dr. McDuffie.
Yes, I have a report out of closed session. The Board of Education accepted the administrative appointment of Sandra Bravo, Program Specialist, Family Engagement. The roll call vote was unanimous, with Ricky Lara being absent. The Board of Education accepted the administrative appointment of Margarita Mosqueda, Program Specialist, Dual Language Immersion. The roll call vote was unanimous, Ricky Lara, board member, being absent.
Thank you, Dr. McDuffie. Tonight's interpreter is Vangelis Garcia. Thank you, sir. Just a reminder to all speakers and presenters, please be mindful when speaking at the podium, not to speak quickly so that our interpreter can increase his accuracy and keep pace for our Spanish and or Mixtec speaking audience. Greeting and support this evening is provided by Maria Cortez and Aida Hernandez. Let's stand please for the pledge. Oakley Dolphins, can you lead us please? The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well played, footballers. Okay, and so item D, we will now recognize the Oakley Dolphins soccer team.
Good evening, board members. It is a pleasure to offer you a recap of our elementary soccer season. The soccer season was held in April of this year, and we hosted 15 elementary teams in 3 pods. They played a total of 49 games, including 5 playoffs and 1 championship game. Due to expanded learning opportunities plan money, we were able to offer these teams uniform shirts, stipends for their coaches, access to fields to play and practice, and official referees from the Los Padres Soccer Referee Association. We hosted a total of 17 coaches and 331 athletes in our soccer league this year. And in a rousing victory, the championship was won at a score of 3-1 by the Oakley Dolphins over the Bruce Bulldogs. And our Oakley Dolphins are here with us this evening. Come on up, guys. Yes, all of you, come up, come up, come up. So this is our co-ed champion soccer team, along with their rousing support from the Oakley cheerleaders. The Oakley team was coached by a 6th grade teacher at Oakley, Anthony Bresca. And their team captains, student captains, were Leonel Martinez and Johan Gonzalez. And the cheerleading team is coached by Mrs. Tognazzini, a 4th grade teacher in our district. So let's hear it for all of our wonderful Oakley Dolphin champions. Left me hanging, but okay. Congratulations once again to you and all of your teammates that I know couldn't make it here tonight. And thank you for participating in our soccer league. And board, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to provide this activity for our students.
And thank you to the parents who brought their children tonight.
We're going to come down and take a picture. All right, outstanding, you guys. We'll move on to item 8, public comment period. The public comments are intended for members of the public to address the Board of Education on items involving the school district. Such testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each, or 450 words per person per subject, and 15 minutes total for each topic. If an answer to a specific question is requested, the board president will, if appropriate, direct administration to respond in writing. Do we have any public comments, Dr. McDuffie?
Yes, we do. We have one public comment on the not on the agenda, and then we have some for LCAP and the resolution on Pride Month.
Okay,
Okay, so we will take that the public comments before the actual action items that we take
okay.
for those.
And then we have one on non-agenda.
Yes, we have John Raymond live.
Mr. Raymond, we should be able to hear you now.
Hello. Hi. This is John Ray. I made a request last board meeting about the board being considered people making comments at public hearings. I never heard from anybody. I'd like to get an answer on that sometime. And I do have an agenda item that I didn't put down. I don't know if I'm out of order or not, but I'd like to be able to defer my comments until after the discussion item on ethnic studies. Will that be allowed, Mr. Hollinshead?
You know, procedurally, it is not, sir. I apologize, but that's not how procedure goes.
The reason I'm asking is, I mean, I've tried to find out what the discussion item by looking online in different places, what ethnic study is, and there's nothing on it. And is it just going to be an agenda item where it's presented and that's it? Or can you answer that at least for me, sir?
Correct. It will be presented information only.
By Dr. McDuffie, or may I ask who's presenting? Because I couldn't even find that out. I tried this week.
This is a new business, so typically it is an item that Dr. McDuffie or a designated person from the district will speak to in general to decide how the formal presentation as a discussion item or action item will be in the future.
Okay. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I appreciate an answer on that first one I asked from somebody to give me a call or text me. All right. Thank you for your time. Have a good one. Thank you. I'll be listening.
I'll move on to item 9, approval of the agenda as presented.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
And I'll second.
Been moved by Mrs. Cordero, seconded by Ms. Corral, that the agenda be accepted as presented. Roll call, please.
Ms. Cabral,
Present, yes, I.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollenshead.
Aye. Motion passes. Move on to item 10, consent items. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are consistent with the adopted policies and approved practices of the district and are deemed routine in nature. They will be acted upon in a roll call vote in one motion without discussion unless a member of the board requests an item be pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be voted on separately. I have a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Ms. Cordero, seconded by Mr. Valencia, that the board accept the consent agenda as presented. Roll call, please.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollenshead.
Aye. Motion passes, and we'll move on to item 11, action items. 11A, approval of local control and accountability plan, LCAP, school plans for student achievement, SPSAs, and state and local indicators.
So we have public comment for LCAP.
Okay, so we, Dr. Humphreys, I think we'll have public comment first before you start.
So I have Mary Jaka.
And this is on the agenda item, right? The LCAP?
Yes, yes, Mary.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Sam Humphrey and school board members. My name is Mary Solorio Jacka, and tonight I am speaking on behalf of LULAC, which is League of United Latin American Citizens. It's one of the oldest Latino or the oldest Latino civil rights organization. The agenda regarding LCAP is what I'm going to speak on right now, and I urge you all to remember that this is a working document and not just a document to satisfy the state. We sometimes write documents and then we say, okay, we wrote a good document, we put it on the shelf, we expect the funding, but just like the work that went into preparing the plan, we must continue to work the plan to get results. It's about investing in our future. These are challenging times for all of us, but let's do the work needed to make changes. I don't ever want to sit here at a board meeting to hear how bad our district did and hear that person saying, don't worry, we are all the same as the rest of the state. That is not right for someone to be satisfied and say, oh, don't worry, we're all in the same boat. No, we want to strive to be better. I don't want to be as low as the state. I want to be better. Be the example of how to do better, to be better. Don't let us down. We expect better. Si se puede. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have three recordings.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the first on LCAP, Diana Espino Figueroa.
Hello, my name is Diana Espino Figueroa, Santa Maria Community School District alumna, community member. I'm calling to provide public comment for agenda item, Local Control and Accountability Plan, commonly referred to as LCAP. I encourage this board to support and fund ethnic studies initiatives within your school district. Having been a student of ethnic studies while I was senior at San Maria Point Union High School District, I was able to learn so much about myself, American society and constitutions, and the world overall. I enjoyed learning from ethnic studies frameworks, but I went on to minor in Mexican American studies while a STEM student at San Jose State. My mathematics degree has been greatly complemented by my ethnic studies understanding. It has certainly been an asset as a human resources professional. I would have loved to have been exposed to ethnic studies earlier in life, whether at Alchemy Junior High or Battle Elementary. However, your support in voting in favor of funding ethnic studies initiatives has provided such opportunities for my cousins, nieces, and nephews, students in your school district. All students greatly benefit from this learning as it allows us for a more nuanced analysis of our society. Thank you for your consideration.
We have Helen Galvin.
Good evening. This is Helen Galvan, speaking on behalf of the American GI Forum Education Foundation under the LCAP agenda item. We are pleased that San Maria Bonita School District has taken the step to present a resolution supporting the first LGBTQ and others Pride Month. Pride Month is all about acceptance, equality, and raising awareness of issues affecting the LGBTQ community. The AGS Education Foundation values diversity and equity for all people, and as such, would now like to see the Santa Maria Bonita School District present a resolution in the near future that will ensure that students at all grade levels have access to a curriculum that is diverse and culturally relevant. We are hopeful that funding for ethnic studies will be one of the items to be discussed under the LCAP agenda item. Thank you.
We have Lawando Lyons Pruitt.
Good evening, Dr. McDuffie, school board members. This is Lawanda Lyons Pruitt, president of the Santa Maria Lompoc branch of the NAACP, NAACP. And I am calling because although I am on the LCAP committee for Santa Maria Bonita School District, I did not realize that the ethnic studies is not being funded through LCAP. And I just want to remind you and the school board that our community has been raising ethnic studies as a priority for years now. We raised it at Santa Maria Joint Union High School, and we've also raised it for Santa Maria Bonita. We think it's very important that we ensure our kids have access to a culturally relevant curriculum. And that curriculum includes people and things that they can identify with, their heritage, people that look like them in their education. We believe that it would be very appropriate for a resolution requiring that it ensures that our kids have access to culturally relevant curriculum and education. And thank you for your support. If you have any questions, you know where I can do reach. And I apologize that I can't be there tonight. Thank you so much.
That's all we have?
Good evening, board. Dr. McDuffie, our cabinet. Hello. I'm here to present on the for adoption, the 23-24 LCAP update. As you're familiar and follow up to the mid-year update provided, as well as the public hearing on June 7th, our LCAP is reflective of a 3-year investment plan with which we are entering the 3rd year. It's been approved in 2021 and 2022. It's inclusive of the 7 goals that were first developed in that initial first year of the cycle and over 70 actions and services. In follow-up to what was presented in the June 7th LCAP public hearing, we go above and beyond the CDE requirements for consultation requirements, increased outreach for educational partner engagement, talking to a variety of district-wide committees, an intentional increase in outreach to our students, as well as leveraging technology through online forums. We followed the CDE consultation requirements or trajectory, which is found ourselves on June 7th, the public hearing and LCAP draft, and now the adoption phase, so we can ensure that it's to the county in a timely manner. In addition to the components that were presented on the June 7th meeting, we have two that are surfacing to highlight to date. It's the LCFF budget overview for parents, as well as increased and improved services. The LCFF budget overview for parents was presented to our DLAC committee, as well as the LCAP Ed Partner Committee. The visual you see before you is representative of the $68.7 million approximate funding through LCFF as a result of our 91% unduplicated student count for enrollment count for foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. In addition to the concentration grant and carryover, the LCAP budget is inclusive of $88.8 million in funding. You can see it here in comparison to the $345 million that is budgeted for the general funds in the upcoming year. As part of the LCAP, we have contributing actions and increased services. And there are two categories within the contributing actions. One is the district and school-wide, and the other is limited primarily or solely for unduplicated students. Within the LCAP in your board packet, you'll see detailed information on those that are increased and improved services on the district and school-wide category. Some examples that are highlighted through there are a number of different important staff. It's everything ranging from our library media services, our outreach mentors, elementary school counselors. In the other category, this is our limited actions that are providing services only for foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. Some examples of those limited actions within the LCAP are one of our most significant investments. That's our bilingual instructional assistants. It's also our ELD coaches, community partnerships to support our foster youth, and an increase in trilingual and bilingual translators. This all leads to what was presented to you previously on our local indicators. This is our public-facing dashboard from the CDE. The 5 local indicators all are indicated there with the standard met. It will be updated when the CDE opens up again in August. In those local indicators, we have 100% across all of our reports. That's inclusive of the Census Day report, Williams report, and the facility inspection report, coupled with the CDE reflection tools. And that's what populates our local indicators for the dashboard. Another major component of the LCAP are our school plans for student achievement, or SIPSAs. These are the investment plans at the site level, indicating the planned actions and proposed expenditures for state and federal allocations. They include evidence-based strategies to meet our school needs. They show how those strategies will provide opportunities for all students, including each student group, to meet state standards. They strengthen the academic program and address the needs of all students in the school, particularly those at risk of not meeting the standards. Those are done in consultation with ELAC and approved by the school site council. They also are inclusive of a number of different documents and progress monitoring by our site leadership. That includes our comprehensive needs assessment, Title I needs assessment, ELAC needs assessment, all found within those school SIPSAs that were included in your board packet. Some examples of our SIPSAs are seen here. Again, our principals, our site leadership did an excellent job consulting with ELAC and their school site council. And each one of these that are included in your board packet were all approved at the school site council level. Some highlights that you'll find for actions and services in the SIPSAs have a wide-ranging amount of efforts, everything ranging from supplemental instructional programs, our AVID membership, building leadership capacity at the site level, including our instructional leadership team and culture and climate team, professional learning, support for multi-language learners, increased parent engagement and education with partnerships through organizations such as PK and Factor, and social emotional learning assemblies, field trips, positive reinforcement programs as well, all done at the site level. Throughout this process, from the mid-year update to the public hearing to now standing before you, we're at June 21st, which is the board meeting and submission for approval and adoption for LCAP, local indicators, and our school plans for student achievement. Following adoption from this meeting, we'll be able to submit to the Santa Barbara County Education Office for approval to ensure that we get the funding necessary for all these ambitious efforts. I want to thank everyone who was able to participate on any one of the number of different venues that offered consultation, including many of our board members. And thank you very much.
Any questions or discussion? Mr. Valencia.
In the comments from the community regarding the LCAP, one of the things that they mentioned, several different speakers, was why the our current LCAP doesn't have any funding for ethnic studies. I'm assuming that is professional development, resources, things of that nature. And so what's the reason for that?
Well, part of the allocation of funding and the description within LCAP is it wants to give us capacity to be able to adapt. So what you don't want to do is paint yourself in a corner in such a level of specificity that you are tied to the decision makers here that end up being throughout the year. So we have things like instructional programs, curriculum, materials, elective course offerings, and you give it broad language so that in the case that this was decided upon, you were able to insert there and you have the funding for it.
And so is this LCAP that we're scheduled to approve for today, it applies to funding for the next 3 years, is that correct?
No, just for the upcoming year.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so each year we do an annual update for it. And so we get different funding each year based off of governor's may revise, local control funding formula. And so this one is indicative of the goals, actions, and services in there that match that funding.
We have been hearing a lot about ethnic studies and incorporating that into our curriculum. I need a little bit of clarification regarding that. My understanding is, as you mentioned, we have adopted curriculum within the curricular areas that are required by the state. That includes English language arts, mathematics, science, health, PE, visual and performing arts. I know I've skipped something important and I apologize, but I have always thought that our social studies curriculum incorporates each grade level has a different topic, I guess. So third grade is typically about the local area and the community. And I know third grade students, unless it's changed, learn a lot about the indigenous folks here, the Chumash Indians and so forth. Fourth grade focuses on California history. Fifth grade is US history. Ancient worlds is sixth grade. Does that not count, if you will, as being containing some of the things that would be in an ethnic studies curriculum, which leads to my second question, which is there an ethnic studies approved curriculum for TK through 8 that would require being adopted?
Board Member Cordero, I'm going to have Jennifer Loftus answer that question and talk about it just briefly.
Thank you, Ms. Cordero. The curriculum that you're referencing, our social studies curriculum for kindergarten through 8th grade, is inclusive of topics that would be covered in an ethnic studies course. That is the way the elementary curriculum is designed. It's embedded within. There is not an ethnic studies curriculum provided by the state or approved by the state for kindergarten through 8th grade. The course that is approved is for high school use. The ethnic studies course that we use at our junior highs that we piloted this year at Fessler Junior High is created by our teachers.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies things that I thought I understood, but I don't think generally when there are references to ethnic studies, it is treated as a totally separate course of study. And I don't perceive it in that same way. So I just wanted clarification.
I think, Mrs. Cordero, there's, just as we have designated versus integrated ELA coursework and curriculum, that the notion of it being integrated into the curriculum is something that makes it not apparent at the lower levels or the younger ages. And we do have piloted that ethnic studies course at the junior high. So it's in the process. I think probably we haven't done the best job as a district as to educating the public as to where we are in that. And perhaps some of the people could who are participatory or interested in that can make some of those queries to the district as well. That's a better forum for them to get the information rather than, we found in the past that public comment doesn't always engender this kind of discussion. Typically, we don't address something that's been brought to us in public comment. So that's probably the better way for them to go. This is a unique situation, or we've kind of gone in a unique direction tonight.
Yeah, and I appreciate, the conversation about designated versus integrated, because the feedback that I've received from one of our social science teachers at the middle school level is that there's some inclusivity, but it often feels tokenizing, that it feels kind of like okay, we're going to do one chapter on Native Americans, and then it's back to a very Eurocentric curriculum. Okay, we're going to talk about explorers, but it tends to focus on men, right, as opposed to the contributions of women. So that's the feedback that I've received from, at least one of our current social science educators. And so that's part of why I think it's so critical, right, to have this conversation. Is it's not this or that. I think it's this and that, right? How can we create specifically designated ethnic studies courses, whether it's through an elective course, but then also how can we ensure, as I was, speaking with Dr. McDuffie about earlier, how can we ensure that it actually lives throughout the curriculum, right? So that what the students are reading in their English classes, right, reflects the diversity of our state and of our world, right? California being one of the most diverse states, right? And ethnic studies as a discipline typically focuses on African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Native Americans, since those are the groups that have a large presence, right, in our state and our country. But the beauty of ethnic studies is that it's also tailored to the community that you live in. So if, for example, we had a large Laotian population, then we would make sure, right, that those communities are well represented. So when the community asks about, where's the funding in the LCAP, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we have the opportunity to fund, say, like curriculum development, professional development for teachers for next school year, if that's a community priority?
Yeah, professional learning's within the LCAP, and it keeps it broad towards the 7 goals. So it's professional learning towards those student achievement outcomes, or towards diversity, equity, inclusion as one of our goals in there. So it keeps it to that point. And then it's also within the school plans for student achievement. At the site level, they have additional funding for professional learning.
And I would just remind the board that we do have on new business tonight, an ethnic studies touchstone presentation. So I think, we can move on to future and enjoy future discussions about this. But I think right now, I think the LCAP is at hand, and that's one portion of it. I had one question for you, Dr. Humphreys.
Yes.
I was looking at the contributing actions table. We don't have it provided on the screens, but just a really quick question or a couple. On the planned percentages of improved services, everything is listed as 0 in the one that's available to us. And then there are several items, 1.14, 15, some of them that aren't.
You have a page number you could reference for me quick?
It's tables. it's a PDF table, 6.9.23 was the update. It's contributing actions table. It's, well, you're talking about what page is it in the actual LCAP?
Yeah, but that's okay. I can find it.
It's, part of it is just to get a picture of what we're talking about as far as the actions that we're doing, or the monies that we're spending ongoing, and how those align with our plan, but also how they are actionable or providing advancement or success for our students. In other words, this gives us a picture of what's the actions are in 23, 24 and the money, but it doesn't say how much those have been increased, what you were talking about before, how much those have been increased, or what some of those previous levels of commitment have been, so that we know, oh, okay, well, this has worked well. We're contributing more this year because either there was a curriculum increase, or, we've got more folks that were more bilingual instructional aids, those kinds of things. So there's not really a comparative or a lineal progression there to kind of picture that.
Yeah, there's two parts to the LCAP template from the CDE. If you're looking at just the fiscal side, there's also, if you keep going on those action tables, there's the 22, 23 annual update table. And so we work in coordination with the county on their fiscal end to make sure all these are populated accurately. So you'd really have to get down to the granular level of comparing an action service to be able to see how much was increased or decreased on the funding. But if you're looking for more of a narrative piece, each one of the goals at the conclusion of it has a goal analysis, and it'll give a narrative piece to which ones were increased or decreased based off of input, feedback, or assessment accountability. Did a really good job of providing a lot of data points for us.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is because with the 200 and some odd pages, this chart might be able to reflect some of that information in one table.
Sure.
Comparatively.
Yeah, it would have to be a supplementary piece to the CDE template, but I understand what you're saying.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further, Mr. Valencia?
I had a question regarding AVID and the GATE program. When I attended some of the LCAP community meetings, I noticed that the funding for the GATE program was higher than for things like, I think, the AVID program. And I was just curious if that's still the case. And if that's the case, why would we fund GATE at a higher amount than, say, the AVID program?
It's in this table.
It's
There's about a fivefold difference. AVID has about a fivefold difference allocation from GATE.
Could you share with us those figures?
Yeah, I think GATE is being funded differently than AVID. AVID is being funded at the site. And so within the LCAP, that's the district-wide allocation to be able to support the AVID program. And then district-wide, we fund more of the GATE program. So that's why it's reflected in the LCAP. But if you look through the SIPSAs, you'll see our junior high programs have their specific funding towards AVID.
So AVID is funded, it sounds like at the site level. Is that both?
Correct. Yeah, there's additional funding in the LCAP for AVID as well, just to help with the systematic work for it. But it's primarily funded through the site level.
And do we have an amount, do you know what the amount is that we invest in AVID compared to, say, like a GATE program?
Through just the district-wide effort, the amount GATE is approximately $60,000. At the district-wide level, AVID is funded at $10,000, but that doesn't speak to each site's funding allocation. We'd have to go through their SIPSAs to be able to identify those four.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, I've seen a lot of wonderful research showing the success of the AVID program, but I have yet to see a lot of that research coming out of, say, the GATE program, which I believe is the Gifted and Talented Education Program. So that's why I'm wondering, well, hey, if we have more research, both qualitative and quantitative, right, that shows that it works well with our youth, I'm curious why we would invest more resources with GATE versus with the AVID program. And again, it doesn't have to be a this or that situation, but if the research is backing the AVID program at a higher degree, then I'm wondering why the funding is so different.
Not to contradict you, Dr. Humphreys, but in the table that I asked you about earlier, the AVID allocation school-wide is 325,000 and GATE is 60.
That's probably inclusive of the SIPSAS amount.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it's, again, it's, I mean, my understanding is when my kids were going through the district and experienced both of these programs was that Kate was very much limited in its support and its pervasiveness as opposed to Avid. And we do have a lengthy number of schools, all our junior highs who are participants in Avid. And I think the great thing is, Mr. Valencia, is that there are people at the Avid conference now. And there are several teachers who are really trying to bring that back into the fold on a more profound or broader level at also at the elementaries as well as the junior highs. And I think we're going to receive an update on Avid at the August meeting too. So
Excellent.
I would just throw in a comment with 91% of our students unduplicated. That really means that the bulk of our monies are spent for all of those 91% of our students who are needy. So we have never invested a huge number of resources into our GATE program. And traditionally, whether it's through LCAP or, different program funding, the funding is and always has been for our neediest students. Are we ready for a motion?
Ms. Corral? Yes. Good. Okay. Please.
I'll move to approve the LCAP program. I mean, like, make sure the local control accountability plan and state local indicators as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Cordero, seconded by Ms. Corral, that the board approve the local control accountability plan and state local indicators as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 11B, adoption of the 2023-24 budget. Mr. Beecher. Thank you, Dr. Humphreys.
Good evening, school board. There it is. It's going to stay this time. Surprise, I'm not Brian King. Brian normally handles this part. I'm grateful he put together this presentation. He was unable to join us tonight, but I'll get us through no matter what. As you know, this is our third trip around the bases with the adoption budget. We've had several conversations already, but just as a way to comply with the requirements to make sure that the LCAP gets approved first, and that the budget gets approved second, and then also making sure that the public hearings for each of those items occurs in a different meeting that's at least 24 hours after the public hearing, right? It's intentionally built in to allow the public the opportunity to provide input during the public hearing and the district to reflect on that input and make sure that as appropriate, it gets included in the plan. And so that's why we're here again tonight to make sure we talk through the adoption. We'll talk about revenues and expenditures, bring up again the Form CEA, which has to do with the cost of education, the classroom expense amount, and then we'll wrap things up. So one of the things that operationally has to occur is the governor and the legislature have to reach an agreement on the final 23-24 state spending plan. The legislature has approved their plan in compliance with constitutional requirements that allow them to continue to receive their paycheck once passing a balanced budget. My understanding is that as of now, the governor has yet to approve that budget, so those conversations are ongoing. What always happens now is the governor approves a budget that's close, but the details are all going to be in the trailer bill language. And so without a doubt, we'll have this presentation tonight requesting your approval of the budget adoption, and then we'll be back probably sometime in August to talk through the 45-day budget revision as more details come out about the budget impacting the plan we have in front of you. So there are several sources of school funding. By far and away, the funding we get from the state of California provides us with the greatest amount of our resources. And so here you can see there's $291 million coming from state sources, about 92%. The federal side, we're seeing almost $14 million in revenues. And then there's some other local sources that are many, interest income, facility use requests. There's some SELPA funding stuff that passes through here for accounting reasons. And so that is our revenue picture based on the assumptions we have today. To provide you a snapshot of our expenditure plan, it's important to note that about 70% of all of our spending goes towards our most important resource, our human resource. So you can see certificated salaries at about 30%, classified salaries at about 12%, management salaries at about 4%, and then about 23% in employee benefits. That number has been going up over time, in part in reflection of the district's employee benefits cap, which has been the same for several years now, but also, as we've talked about several times, increasing pension costs as the state strives and struggles to have its state pension systems be fully funded. And so we're all looking forward to that goal. It's an important goal, but it's an expensive goal as we strive to reach it. And then the rest of our budget is invested in our books and supplies, including adopted materials, services, and other operating expenses, where we've got our transportation costs, our costs for our after-school programs, and then also all of our additional supports for students with our outreach mentors, truancy mentors, and those important services. Coming to a full expenditure amount of $340 million there. So I bring this up because there is a provision in the education code that school districts must invest a specific amount as a minimum in the classroom as the priority area for investing, obviously, as a school district. For elementary schools, we have to spend 60%. For high school districts, 50%, and then unifieds, because they represent both, is kind of an average between the two. Because this is a bit of a flag, it can be a flag. It's important to point out to the board that we're not alone. In fact, recently, more than half of school districts are now, at least elementary school districts, are now failing to meet this requirement. That number has been growing pretty steadily over time since the LCFF funding formula and LCAP came to be. But it's all right, even though, yes, please.
So the 60% for elementary, does that mean you should only be spending 60% of your budget for those stated things? And if you spend more than that, then you're out of compliance?
It is the opposite.
The opposite.
You must spend a minimum of 60% on classroom connected expenditures. And if not, then there's two things. The county superintendent can set aside funds sufficient to cover the difference, so that you do spend 60% of your budget in the classroom, or you can take the route that we do, and I'm sure every other school district that's reflected in this chart, request a waiver.
Don't we spend at least 60%?
No, we don't.
Oh, we don't.
No.
Okay, go back 2 slides to the expenditures. All of the human resources
Mhm.
is 70%. Our personnel,
Correct. And that includes all personnel. So it's our custodians, it's our night custodians, it's our office staff, it's our staff here at Sousa. It's all of the folks that do the work of public education, not just the teachers, the instructional aides, and the support for that work. That
So it's
piece is a
only-
slice inside of there.
okay, so like school principals wouldn't be counted?
Correct.
Only classroom teachers, instructional assistants? What about your office person?
No.
No. Okay, I get it now.
Mhm. And so when LCAP came around and there were additional dollars to spend on supplemental services to help students improve, whereas these classroom expenditure dollars are really more connected to base funding. So as those supplemental dollars came in, it became more challenging for districts to meet this requirement, which is why in that chart you see such a growth in districts that are out of compliance as LCFF gained full funding.
So it does not seem logical to me that if you spent that much of your budget just on in that very limited specific way, that you wouldn't be able to afford to run your schools because you wouldn't have anybody to answer phones or do the work behind the scenes that even gets the kids to the classrooms.
Some of these types of hard requirements can be challenging to meet. In particular, when you get supplemental funding to pay for an ACES program, and it's a significant dollar amount, or in supplemental programs, you have the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant and the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. All of those supplemental dollars are going to be for activities that happen outside of the classroom. And so they'll tip the scale out of compliance.
Right.
And if you're at the limit and you try and maintain the limit, when you get those new dollars, then you're required to come up with another 60 cents somewhere else to invest in classrooms to counterbalance, right?
So is there any conversation about reconfiguring that requirement in some way, or that's a ridiculous question because you have no control of that?
That is correct. The correct question. My understanding is there are no moves in the works
Okay.
to change the requirement. That
It's easier to just approve the waivers.
that's the process.
And then I
Mhm.
assume the supposition then that school districts are supposed to feel guilty about not meeting that requirement.
I don't know what the intention is to create feelings in school districts, but what I do know is that the requirements that you need to meet to qualify our waiver aren't difficult or challenging for us to meet. And it's not attractive law to write or attractive law to change the requirement in any way. So it doesn't seem to me that it's going to be addressed in the near future.
Okay. I know that's not new, but I guess that just hit me this time.
I appreciate your questions, and I always look forward to board meetings when we can dig deep into some of these unique aspects of public education and education finance. So thank you, Ms. Cordero.
Some of it is extremely mystifying.
And again, this is a history of the district's attempts to comply with. And you can see we were really close for a while, but we've fallen off as these additional dollars get invested in other services that students need in addition to classroom instruction. Yeah, so those are COVID years. And in the COVID years, we basically had teachers teaching, and a lot of those supplemental services were not in place. So, but it's a bright spot on the table, Ms. Guerrero. Thank you for pointing that out. But here we are, we're back in 2023 for our current estimate at 47.9. Okay. So we can file an application for an exemption. We've done so quite a while, working through this with the County Office of Education. And we usually preview the calculation with them to make sure that we're all on the same page. The reason that we can request for that is if our payment of classroom teacher salaries are in excess of those paid by other comparable districts, we can be approved for this waiver. So Mr. King puts together this analysis each year based on the requirements for the waiver. These are the school districts that fall into our category. I spent a little bit of time kind of analyzing the numbers once I knew I'd be joining you tonight for this conversation. In each of those columns, beginning teacher salary, average teacher salary, and maximum teacher salary, the Santa Maria Bonita School District is not the highest, but we're the second highest in each. No district appears as the highest in any one column. So there's a different high, like number one rank each time, but the Santa Maria Bonita is ranked very high, number two in each of those areas. And so this evidence is sufficient for the county office to approve our request for a waiver. And so we don't have to worry about not meeting this requirement as part of our budget for this year. And so with that, we can wrap that up. Our budget, as it's presented to the school board, provides the opportunity for us to issue a positive certification on the budget report to the county office. And again, as we heard earlier tonight during public comment, as the LCAP is a living, breathing document, the budget is a living, breathing document. We're going to start writing this budget, which is its own plan, in ink with the best assumptions we have, best information we have available. And on July 1, it's all going to change. But by size and shape, this is what our activities will be for the year and set us up for a good course for the 23-24 school year.
Okay. Is that the motion?
I'll recommend that the Board of Education certify to the Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools and the State Department of Education that the budget was reviewed in accordance with state adopted standards as reported on the state certification and adopt the 2023-2024 budget as presented.
And I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Valencia, seconded by Mrs. Cordero, that the board certify to the Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools and the State Department of Education that the budget was reviewed in accordance with the state adopted standards as reported on the state certification and adopt the 2023-2024 budget as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to 11.
Thank you, Mr. Beecher.
Brian would have been proud of you. Move on.
Well, and the one night he's not the last on the agenda.
Yeah.
I tell him he needs to recalculate. He should have been not available at the last meeting.
Item 11C, authorization to allow the superintendent to award RFP number 5268 crossing guard services. Ms. McKnight.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent Dr. McDuffie, and Cabinet. This request calls for proposals from qualified firms to provide district-wide crossing guard services at 60 locations. The specifications and scope of work for this RFP were prepared by district staff, and a notice calling for proposals was advertised in the Santa Maria Times and posted on Planet Bids. 8 prospective proposals downloaded the RFP documents, and 5 proposals were received and opened on June 9th. An evaluation committee consisting of 5 district staff members was formed and evaluated and scored proposals on the following factors: cover letter and proposal summary, 5 possible points; references, 10 possible points; profile and qualifications were 20 possible points; recruitment and training was 15 possible points; and cost was 50 possible points. At 86 overall points, All City Management Services Incorporated is deemed the highest ranked proposer, and their proposal is responsive to the RFP specifications. All City Management Services is the district's current crossing guard provider. In accordance with the Public Contract Code, proposers are allowed 5 business days after the notice of intent to award to file an appeal of the award recommendation. The notice of intent to award for this solicitation was issued on June 20th. To allow the awarded proposer time to recruit and train staff over the summer, district staff is seeking board authorization to allow the superintendent to award a contract for RFP 5268 to All City Management Services as the highest ranked proposer after the expiration of the 5 business day appeal period. Staff will then return to the board in July to request that the board ratify the superintendent's award. Questions?
My only question is who currently provides the crossing guards?
It is the highest ranked firm, so it is All City Management.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm asking, well, there's quite a large cost discrepancy in the bids. And looking at them, none of them say they're out of Santa Maria, so I didn't know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question?
Just a clarifying question. So if the public were to view the original draft of this document, these figures wouldn't be available to them? But is that correct?
Absolutely. As long as it's not marked confidential, we are allowed to disclose that through a public records request.
Gotcha. So these figures that we're seeing here are now available to the public to see on our website. Is that correct?
They are not on our website. They are in Planet Bids, and then they are also in the board packets, so they are available for the public to review.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And because they have 5 days to file a notice of intent to object or whatever you call that, we are just giving the superintendent authority to implement if we approve it now, if there are no objections.
Yes, it would allow the superintendent to go ahead and sign those contracts. And then when we bring it back and let you all know, what the result was, that there, if there was or was not an appeal.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Sure.
I'm ready.
Entertain the question.
Then the board recommends that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to award RFP number 5268 crossing guard services to All City Management, Inc. after the expiration of the timeline for appeal as presented.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved by Mrs. Cabral and seconded by Mrs. Cordero that the board authorize the superintendent to award RFP 5268. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to item 11D, resolution. Thank you, Ms. McKnight. We'll move on to 11D, resolution 22-20, recognizing June 2023 as Pride Month. Dr. McDuffie.
Thank you. We have public comment on this.
Oh, okay.
So we have Sari Dominguez.
Hello, Board of Supervisors and Superintendent. My name is Sari Dominguez, and I am a chapter chair of Moms for Liberty. And one of the things we do is really watch our children in education and what is being taught to make sure that they are being taught the basics to know how to read, write, do math. And I was reading your core values, and I really, really like your core values. They really speak to what the Moms for Liberty are for. I did want to address this item because I noticed you wanted to have my understanding the LGBTQ Pride Month for June to be established every year at your schools. And the thing is, I have friends and family, and I had coworkers that were part of that community, and they're wonderful people. And I do understand that you are trying to have children understand that there's differences in their lives with people and cultures. And I think it's a good thing, but really on a basic level of just good citizenship. I think the Pride Month is something that is still being introduced to the community, where a child could, ask questions with their parent as far as what it's all about. And I know it seems to be an innocent thing to recognize that community, but I don't think it's something that should be done at the elementary schools. Because I was looking into the State Board of Education ethnic studies and their model curriculum. And in there, they actually add the LGBTQ community, which to me, really, I don't see it as an ethnic or have an ethnicity. It really is a gender sexuality idolization, which as an adult, I have no problem with when you decide really where you're going to go with that in your life, because it's a very mature decision and personal. And it's something I think that really should be more of an adult decision. As children grow and have ideas and things are introduced to them, they will choose things, but let the children grow up and just be children. Again, I think it's more of an adult it's an adult level of things. I mean, we can say, yes, they're very different. They have their own unique lifestyle, which is fine. I mean, they're not breaking the law. They're wonderful people. I know many of them, but it's starting to get into this side of being more sexualized. And that's where I think we need to really draw the line and make sure that if it's introduced, it's just a different lifestyle than it is really what it's all about, which is more, to me, a mature adult decision in life and not really for an elementary school district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have John Shade.
Hello, Board, Dr. McDuffie and others here. I'm with the House of Pride and Equality. I happen to be the board secretary for that, and we are here just to represent and thank you for considering this resolution. And why is that important? Because for children, as it does state in the core values, because I'm very familiar with core values as I spent 24 years in the Air Force, where we had integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And your core values talk about the safe environment that we would have for our children. And one of the things that's very important for the children is to know that they have the ability to be themselves, whatever they choose to be. And this resolution recognizing Pride Month gives them that opportunity. It gives them that liberty to be free to what they want to be and feel comfortable in the education services that are being provided. And that's one of the things that's been nice about it. It is not any type of indoctrination. It is not any attempt to steer them one way or another, but it's an attempt to make them feel comfortable, to feel safe. And as I read the resolution, I was really impressed because that's one of the things that you guys actually talk about in there. It's an ability for those in this community, may they talk with their parents, but also feel free that they can talk with somebody in the school district or anybody else, because they know that there's a lot of inclusion and a lot of ability to be free to who they are. So I just wanted to thank you for taking this opportunity to consider this resolution, to recognizing Pride Month and giving those children, those staff members, such as myself, and I happen to teach for this district, the opportunity to be a part of it. Because we know in the elementary school, that's where we teach them things, especially at the 5th grade level, about what sexuality is. But we don't teach them to be a part of this community. We just teach them what it is and let them decide. And our children are amazing people who can make great decisions for themselves and talk it over with their parents. So thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak and the recognition of this resolution.
Thank you.
Eva Didion, is that right? Okay. Thank you.
So I'm Eva Didion, probably too far. Welcome and good evening to the members of the board and everybody else here. I didn't come here prepared with a speech. In fact, I didn't come here intending to speak at all. I came here to support John. And then this afternoon, I watched a program on television and it says everything that you guys as a school board, any of you who are parents and members of this community need to hear. This program was on, it's called Independent Lens. It's an educational program. I urge all of you, in fact, I would ask you all to spend an hour and 25 minutes to watch it. It covers every topic that you need to know about. And the person that just spoke, a couple of people before me, when you mentioned that this is an adult issue, I came out as an adult. I'm a retired social worker and a married lesbian. And I came out as an adult myself, but I've also become a member of House of Pride and Equality, or rather I'm a founder. And I've gone to Pride events. We've had 6 of those in Santa Maria now. And what amazes me the most and what I've learned the most is the children that come to these events and how young they are. It's incredible that a child at age 5 or 7 knows that they're gay. I didn't realize that. I mean, I was in a very sheltered upbringing. I didn't have the opportunity, or my God, my life would have probably been a lot different. But when I see a 7-year-old coming to a booth and just begging their mother to buy themselves to buy them a trans flag or just a gay pride flag, and see a little child running with that flag around and just happy to be themselves. I know some of you were there on Saturday when we had Santa Maria Pride, and I hope you saw that and you shared that with your board members, because I don't think all of you were there. But the children is probably our best commodity in our community. And they come from every color and every shape and every income. But there's also a lot of gay kids in this community, and trans kids is in this community. I just spoke to the trans ambassador for the world for the Kinsey Institute. She's a local trans woman. She's probably now in her 50s. She told me at 7 years old, she wanted to cut her penis off. And then she wanted to kill herself. You guys can prevent things like that from happening by what parents sometimes can't do, but our education system should. And just provide education, not opinions. Don't change anybody's lifestyle, just provide education. And please watch that program. I really mean it. It's really important if you see it. It shows you examples of families, just like some of those in our community, and how they came from pure Christian values, and then what their children brought to them, because the children will educate you. Not so much the adult community. Listen to the kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all we have for public comment. And so for this resolution, it's presented in recognition of June 2023 as Pride Month, and to utilize this opportunity to increase awareness and visibility around the LGBTQ plus community. This resolution supports the district's ongoing commitment and education plans to promote safe and affirming school spaces, for families, students, families, and staff, which focuses on intersectional diversity, acceptance, and unconditional support. This resolution is about affirming SMBSD's beliefs that we talked about here, and we've just approved our last meeting. Some of those are: we believe that each person has inherent value and deserves respect. We believe all people belong, have a voice, and can contribute. We believe physical and emotional safety is foundational for personal fulfillment, and we believe equity is essential for all persons. So for the Board of Education, I present to you the resolution for June 2023 as Pride Month.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Valencia?
Since to my recollection, this is a historic first for our school district, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I haven't gone back to the last 100 or so years for our school district, if we're that old, but I believe this is a first for us, which I believe is very historic and appropriate, especially in light of attacks against the LGBTQ plus community, people as young, right, as elementary school, middle school, adults. I truly see this as a life or death issue, because if we do not learn to love each other and accept each other for who we are, we've seen throughout history, you know, what the consequences of that could be. So that's why it gives me great honor, great pride to, you know, support this resolution. And I wanted to take a moment to read just some of the, you know, brief paragraphs of what this resolution entails. So
I'm sorry, I just think it needs to be read because some of the information that has gone out is different from what is on the resolution. So if we could read the whole thing.
How about you start and do 5 whereases,
Okay,
and then Mr. Valencia can bring it home with the next 5 whereases,
okay.
and then the resolved part.
I was going to invite the board, each board, you know, to take a piece if they wanted to, but we can do it that way if that's the will of the board.
I think you guys should go for it.
Let's do it.
Do
I
it.
think what John suggested is fine. Santa Maria Bonita School District Resolution 2220, recognizing June 2023 as Pride Month. Whereas the beliefs of the Santa Maria Bonita School District include providing a safe, inclusive environment for all students and staff, where equity is essential to thrive, where a unified community inspires hope and faith. Whereas Santa Maria Bonita School District believes that inclusion among the district community, students, staff, families, and community members is integral to the success of the district's mission. Whereas Santa Maria Bonita School District prohibits unlawful discrimination of all kinds as defined by SMBSD Board Policy 0410, California law, and US law. Whereas Santa Maria Bonita School District is fully committed to creating a positive climate, maintaining a safe and welcoming environment, and promoting a strong sense of belonging in our schools. Whereas Santa Maria Bonita School District is furthermore committed to having a sense of belonging extend to the families in the districts, as well as students, teachers, and staff, so everyone is welcome equally to our campuses.
Whereas Pride Month celebrates many contributions of LGBTQ individuals, respecting the talent, creativity, and positive impact to our communities. Whereas Santa Maria Bonita School District celebrates the accomplishments of LGBTQ people and works to create a respectful, caring, and inclusive culture for all within the school district community. Whereas Pride Month is currently celebrated each year in the month of June. Whereas Santa Maria Bonita School District is working to cultivate positive and safe school environments to empower youth with confidence and knowledge to successfully navigate and improve the ever-changing world. And whereas by recognizing Pride Month, we reaffirm our commitment to support other policies, practices, and curricula that honor and respect LGBTQ plus students, staff, their families, and all people in our community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Maria Bonita School District does hereby proclaim June 2023 as Pride Month to inspire equity, create alliances, celebrate diversity, and establish safe environments in our schools and communities. Furthermore, Santa Maria Bonita School District invites everyone to reflect on ways we can live and work together with a commitment to mutual respect and understanding. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Well done. And I share your pride, Mr. Valencia, and not to, no pun intended. But this is really, something that I think is very important, as the gentleman stated earlier, not only for our children, but for our faculty and staff to feel acknowledged, valued, and part of a welcoming, loving community. And I think with our kids, the big part of it is, as you stated and was stated before, is about a feeling of belonging, a feeling of safety and contentment. And I think, we have heard from our students here at a number of ages about different acts of aggression towards them or bullying and things of that nature. So I think our making a statement in regard to the importance of the safety and the inclusion of those children in our community and on our school sites and their value to us is important to declare. So I will, if there's no further discussion or questions, I will entertain the motion.
And so then, no, I'm going to move.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm going to move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 2220, recognizing June 2023 as Pride Month as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Ms. Cabral and seconded by Mr. Valencia that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 22-20, recognizing June of 2023 as Pride Month as presented. Roll call, please.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero, Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And we'll move on to discussion items, and that would be item 12A, SBHIP grant and mental health supports. Ms. Loftus?
Yes, thank you. This evening, Carolyn Kleinsmith, our program specialist for health services, will be providing an update on our mental health services and also a grant called SBHIP.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dr. McDuffie and Cabinet. Thank you for this opportunity to provide you with an update on the activities that we do for our mental health and drug awareness, as well as the programs that we have to support behavioral health services within the district. I'm going to figure out this system here. I'm going to begin with giving you some information on what we do to support awareness. So we have lots of opportunities in the district to support students, parents, and staff for mental health and drug awareness. For our students, all of our students receive tobacco, alcohol, and drug prevention education. In our middle schools, through our new health curriculum class, we have comprehensive sexual health education, mental health promotion, and suicide prevention. We also encourage 30 minutes a day in each student's class to have social emotional curriculum. For our parents this year at our junior highs, we offered the Hidden in Plain Sight presentation, which provides parents with information on how to be aware of warning signs of substance use, as well as substance use prevention. And for our staff, we do suicide prevention education, crisis response and intervention training, anti-bullying training. And this year, for the first time, we offered to our ACES staff, our after-school programs, the mental health first aid course. And we also are providing instruction in restorative practices to our PPS credentialed counselors. In addition, we have done some opiate and particular fentanyl awareness to our middle school volunteers. We did also Narcan administration training, and we now have Narcan in our middle schools. I will now describe some of the services that we provide for behavioral health support. So we do provide behavioral health support through our multi-tiered systems of support. In the MTSS content, we have 3 levels of tiered support. The first tier is universal, meaning that all students have access to tier one behavioral interventions. An example of this would be the 30 minutes of social emotional curriculum each day. An additional example would be universal screening, and I'm going to give you a little more information on that in a few minutes. Our tier two are targeted supports, and students will receive tier two supports once they've been identified and referred typically to our cost teams. Our cost teams then look at a variety of data assessment points to determine the students' needs, what are the areas of concern, what are the needs, and then matching those students then to a tier two intervention support. Examples of tier two interventions might be check-in, check-out with the student, a social emotional curriculum that is specified specifically to that student's needs, and that may be through a group or individual supports. We also do behavior contracts, social emotional intervention plans, safety plans, healthcare plans. We have a variety of school-based service providers that help us to provide behavioral health services to students in tier two. These include our outreach mentors, our licensed psychiatric techs, licensed vocational nurses, family advocates and family outreach advocates, truancy mentors, homeless liaisons, foster youth liaison, conflict mediators, school-based therapists, behavior specialists, school psychologists, school nurses, and PPS counselors. And I really did want to take the time to list out all of those providers because I think that's really important. Santa Maria Bonita School District really has a pretty comprehensive plan and a lot of support providers to provide behavioral health services to our students. When a student is not making a progress, the outcome is not what we had intended during tier two support, the student can be advanced to tier three, which is a more intensive support. There we would be looking at ways to modify possibly the curriculum or the environment to help support that student. This would be more through an IEP or a 504. We can also, through the IEP or the 504, provide counseling services to the students, either by our school psychologist or our mental health specialists. Another assessment that can be done is for our behavior specialists to do a functional behavioral assessment. And that's where we can understand the behavior a little bit more and then provide them with an individualized behavior intervention plan. In order to provide all of these services, it's really important that we have community partners. And so we do have quite a few community partners that help us to access our students to community-based programs. We also have service providers that partner with us in the schools to provide direct services, as well as providing curriculum support. And you will see that some of our community partners support us in multiple different areas. Our access partners are Family Service Agency, Care Solace, Mental Wellness are now called MWell. And then new in the upcoming year will be the SB-HIP program, the Santa Barbara Behavioral Incentive Program. One of the new things that we did this year was Care Solace, which has been really helpful in providing an avenue of accessing our students, families, and staff members for behavioral health services. Our school-based service partners are the Family Service Agency. Again, they are the agency that provides our outreach mentors. CADA, Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, provides our school-based therapists. Santa Barbara County Behavior Wellness, we collaborate with the providers at Behavior Wellness on our high-risk students that are in treatment, and that by collaborating, we're able to provide better services in school that are supporting the services that they're getting in outpatient, and this helps to improve outcomes. We also partner with Fighting Back Santa Maria Valley to do parenting classes, and then Communify and Secure Families to help support students through the navigation of the mental health system and the school system to make sure that things are collaborating and working well together for our most high-risk students. In curriculum support, we have Fighting Back Santa Maria Valley that goes into our middle schools and provides the alcohol, tobacco, and drug prevention education. They also provide pregnancy prevention education and STD education. Our North County Rape Center provides Child Safe to our 1st, 4th, and 7th grade students. And then MWell provides suicide prevention education in our 7th graders. Knowing You Matter is also new this year. They provide hope bags, which we give to our students who are in crisis, particularly those students who have had a risk for suicide. And so these are a nice bag that we can provide to them. Yes. Yes.
I just want to clarify so that people who are listening to this understand that there really is not a North County Rape Center. It is called North County Rape Crisis and Child Protection Center. So we're not supporting rape.
No, not at all. They are providing information to our Child Safe program on how to protect against. They also have provided education to our health instructors on human trafficking and signs to look out for that, as well as teen dating violence as well. So they've been a very good partner with us. Thank you. I now would like to introduce you to SBHIP, or the Student Behavioral Health Initiative Program. This is an exciting new program that we became involved with this year, and through the year-long process of doing a needs assessment and determining in different types of strategies, we were rewarded as a district $876,800 for behavioral health in our district. Let me give you a little bit more information on what SBHIP is. It is a incentive program. It's a partnership between the Department of Healthcare Services, Medi-Cal, and LEAs. It was an outcome of a new law, AB 133, that was signed into law in July of 2021 by Governor Newsom. And the idea is that schools are a really critical access point for behavioral health services and to provide early intervention for mental health conditions. The state recognized the increasing numbers of youth who are having issues with mental health and wanted to do something that could directly impact youth. And so they realized that schools are a critical access point for students. And they also found that if students were identified in schools, they were 21 times more likely to actually have access to mental health care. And so because of that, they created this program to provide these financial incentives to LEAs so that they can increase access to students in grades TK through grade 12 to behavioral health services. The goal, the structure to do that is to improve coordination of services, build infrastructure capacity, develop sustainable funding mechanisms, and all of these will also address health inequities and disparities. So we went through the first phase, which was our needs assessment. All LEAs did a needs assessment, and then all of the LEAs for Santa Barbara County came together. And as a county, we had to identify 4 targeted interventions. And then within each LEA, we defined our own interventions to meet those targets. So the first of the 4 was to expand behavioral health and wellness programs. I would like to say here that again, at how innovative Santa Maria Bonita School District has been in providing mental health services. I've had the opportunity to really look at what is being offered in other surrounding areas, and we have a much more comprehensive program. One of the recommendations out of the needs assessment was for most of the LEAs to begin to offer outreach mentoring services. We already have a well-established outreach mentoring program. So for us, we looked at something more innovative that we can address the mental health needs of our students. And so for us, the intervention strategy is to expand licensed psychiatric technicians so that we can have one LPT for each cluster. The LPTs can assist with the crisis response, and they can also be involved in tier 2 behavioral intervention supports. And the other goal is to have family navigator teams. These would be composed of LCSWs, and they would be the link between SNCAL and the LEA, helping students that are identified as needing mental health supports, because one of the real difficulties is very long waiting periods. Some of our students are waiting 5 months to get an appointment with a mental health care provider. So working with SNCAL, who's also part of this program, the goal is to increase that access and decrease those times. And so the family navigators would be an important piece of that. There is substantial funding. Most of the funding is for these two positions. The second goal is to do behavioral health screening and referrals. All of the participating LEAs will be offering universal screening. I mentioned earlier, universal screening is a tier 1 intervention. This is a great way to help identify students who are at risk and then connect them or link them to mental health care services. This also is substantially funded through the grant funds, because it's really important that if you're going to do universal screening, you have the resources to be able to connect students that you identify as being at risk to those services. And this would be a big role for those family navigators. Key to this whole process is to have the services these new services be sustainable, that there is a renewing revenue source. And this is through the third targeted intervention of increasing access to mental health services through stronger partnerships. So currently, there is a student behavioral health collaborative work group that is composed of SNCAL, Santa Barbara County Behavior Wellness, and the LEAs. And this is really exciting in other community organizations. What's really exciting about this is that it's a new way of billing for services, for behavioral health services. So currently, much of the services that we provide in the district are not billable, so there's no revenue coming in from those services. This is to create a new school-based service plan specific for Santa Barbara County schools, but each county is developing theirs by looking at the services that we are currently providing and then being able to bill for those services. So for example, if a student has a tier 2 intervention of check-in, check-out, that would be a billable service. And so this is really innovative. This is really an exciting opportunity. And I think that the state has kind of tapped into something special here. So this is an exciting piece of the program. And then the fourth targeted goal or intervention is parenting and family services. So one of the things that came out of our needs assessment is that our Mesteco families really do not have access to culturally appropriate information about mental health conditions and mental health access to services. And so one of the goals is to increase family education on behavioral health in culturally appropriate ways. And one of the interventions to do that is to train our existing family advocates to be promotores, which is a special training specifically for health education. And so they are the liaison between the health community and the parent. Another important component of this program is a closed loop referral system, so that essentially there's one entry point in for referrals, and that is taken all the way around, so that one of the things we find is we oftentimes are stepping over each other's toes because one agency is trying to refer one place and another is trying to refer another. So with the partnership with SNCAL, once a student is identified and the parent provides consent, then the family navigator will assist that family through that referral process, connecting them with the provider and then following up with the parent and the student afterwards. So currently we are looking at implementation plans for the expansion of the behavioral health and wellness programs. Representatives from Student Family Services and Special Education Department are working together. For universal screening, there is a committee through our MTSS collaborative team that's looking at identifying a universal screener and the procedures for implementing. Family and parent services are working with the family education and the promotoras. And then sustainability is a partnership through SNCAL, Student Family Services, Special Education Department, and the Business Department. So we're all at this point working together to look at intervention strategies so that we can increase awareness about the SB HIP program and then begin to build these programs into our school community. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for any questions.
Remind me what SBHIP.
Student Behavioral Health Incentive Program.
Student, that's a mouthful.
It is.
And I have student behavioral
health incentive program.
Okay. And in the loop diagram that you showed, who or what is the LCSW?
So the LCSW is a licensed clinical social worker.
And you do not yet have a tool to use for the universal screening.
We have narrowed it down to 2 options. And so we are, as a committee, looking at those to see which one is best. One is to consider using the Panorama tool that we currently use, but that really isn't specific to identifying mental health issues. And so the one that we're looking at is called SABRS. And I don't have my notes in front of you, so I can't identify all of those words for you, but it is an evidence-based universal screening tool that will connect with CASEL. So there's some good connecting ability to tap into different resources. And then it's pretty simple to use as well. So we can have our teachers help to do that.
I would be very interested in just taking a look at that or seeing what kinds of questions are included.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great call, Ms. Cordero, and we can maybe do that for the whole board.
Yep. And there was 4 tools that were recommended by SB-HIP. I can give you the comparison on each of those tools, what they do, kind of what the costs are, if there is any cost involved with them, as well as the benefits and non-benefits to each one.
Yeah, so just get that to my office and then I'll make sure every board member gets that.
And that might be inclusive of when that would be administered in the school year, the timeliness of it.
Yeah, so it's really fluid, so it's not like hard dates, but most of the time when you do a universal screening, you want to do 2 times in the year, once kind of early in the year and once at the end of the year. And so SB-HIP is recommending that the universal screening for the first time be done before October 31st of 2023.
And I think there's always the consideration of all the different things that we ask not only the students, but the teachers to do with filling out Panorama and different surveys. So to consider the timeliness and the importance of the respective requests on them and what we're really, the important information we're trying to get.
That's a valid point. I think that was brought up in the committee as well. And that's why we're kind of trying to decide between Panorama and SABRS and making sure that we're not overtaxing staff, parents, and students with repetitive types of processes.
Yeah, the fidelity might drop off if that happens as well, to answering accurately. My concern is that the timeliness of accessing the system, the bureaucracy of going through SendCal and whatnot, and getting services to kids, and that delay that you described, or the interim time as to access. What's happening in that interim? Are the LCWs or the merit license? Sorry, the
Clinical social
LCSWs?
workers.
Yeah, the social workers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they then keeping in contact with the family and the student, or how is that proposed to work? Because that's my concern.
Yeah, so we don't currently have LCSWs. So currently we have pretty much each site team is working individually as a site. And so that now would be coordinated through, the concept would be to coordinate through the LCSWs as family navigators, all of those outside referrals. And Care Solace is really a great example of what a closed loop system is, which is what we partnered with. And as a matter of fact, I actually introduced Tyler from Care Solace to Fran from SB-HIP. So Care Solace is actually one of the companies that they're looking at through SendCal to be their primary referral source. And so what happens with Care Solace is we make a referral, we suggested the parent, the student should be seen and have consideration for mental health care. Parent consents, then we refer to Care Solace, and then Care Solace starts looking at all of the available providers in the area, and some out of the area with telehealth. And then they match the specific needs of that student to providers and then connect with those providers to make that connection between the family and establish the appointment. And then they follow back up, and we get an in-time reading 24/7. We can see on a dashboard wherever our students are in that process. It's been a really valuable tool, and Dr. McDuffie introduced us to that concept. We were able to bring it to the district, and it's been fantastic. And so I actually hope that Care Solace is CenCal's partner, because they have really shown themselves to be very effective.
And so in contrast or in comparison to accessing the medical system, then there is that maybe the possibility of that delay, but there's not a possibility of denial of services or any kind of thing like that.
Right. And so one of the interesting things that was in our report, which was part of what SBH HIP put together, was that, and unfortunately there's two figures in two different places and they're a little bit of a discrepancy, but one says 68% of our student population, another says 94% of our student population are Medi-Cal eligible. And so that CenCal is that Medi-Cal provider, and the idea is to have those communities that have more health disparities be connected to services. So it is working on avenues to decrease delay and increase access. But I'll be honest with you though, provider numbers are low. And so when you increase access, that's great, but you have to have somebody to increase the access to. And unfortunately, we need more providers. And the state is aware of that. That's something that's also come out of this, the needs assessment conversation, and looking at other avenues of supporting mental health. What are some other providers that can be more accessible? What types of things can they do to incentivize more people to move into mental health careers?
My
Thank you.
interest is in really seeing that we have a long list of services available and people that fill a variety of different roles, that things are coordinated essentially so that the appropriate services are provided and we don't have kids either being over serviced or falling through the cracks.
I think
kind of
that's an
thing.
important point, and that's one of the things that as a district, we've talked about closed loop referral systems, even for school-based services. So what we're thinking to do is have a closed loop referral system within the district that then links to the closed loop referral system through CenCal. Because you're absolutely correct that sometimes we're missing, we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. And
Well,
so we
hey,
want to make sure that we have the whole piece of all the pieces so we can put the puzzle together. And so having a closed loop referral system for school-based services is equally as important to make sure that we are meeting those needs of the student. And then having that ability to check back. So not just putting someone in a service, which has happened sometimes where we put them in outreach mentoring and they stay in there for, till they're in junior high, and we don't really know what the outcome of that is. So having measurable objectives with a timeline and coming back to that and saying, is this service working? If not, why not? Is it a fidelity issue, or is it that we need to add a different service? Or it is working, and so then that student can be dismissed from that service. And so having that closed loop referral system will make us much more efficient at providing the appropriate intervention and doing the follow through on that intervention.
Thank you.
If I could make a request, one of the reasons that we discussed or asked about this particular subject was education in regards to drugs, with the escalation that we've seen in schools throughout the country, and also because of the lack of depth and fidelity with which it was treated with previous programs, again, throughout the country. So I would really like to see a framework for what Fight Back is actually teaching or doing with drug prevention and drug education. Seeing as it's not a nationally recognized program or entity, I think it's important for us to know what those things are that they're doing and how that's affecting our students, what information it is, and the timeliness of it, and the depth and breadth of it.
I can absolutely provide that to you. And also just so you know that when we selected the text for the health class for seventh grade, one of the things that I was concerned about, and I can share that text because the Fighting Back Santa Maria comes in to augment the information in the student's text. So the health teachers are also presenting the information on drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. And one of the things missing from the text was a more emphasized focus on opioid use and specifically fentanyl. So we addressed that, and fortunately, the company that produces the book actually has a whole new segment that was very pertinent to fentanyl and opioid use. So that was part of the curriculum that they received this year as well. And so I am happy to provide both the information from Fighting Back Santa Maria, the ed codes, I can provide those as well as the text that our current health classes are using.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Mr. Valencia?
I noticed that there was a listing of PPS counselors.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I know that that's been a concern of parents and community members to make sure that we have full-time counselors at each of our sites. Is
Correct.
that in fact the case now?
I do not believe we are fully staffed on that at this time. I think we had about half of our schools with PPS credentialed counselors. And I know that's something that Mr. Bland is working on. And that is definitely the goal and absolutely a need. Excuse me.
And so do we have a plan on how to help to meet that need?
I would have to defer to HR or Ms. Loftus in regards to that because I am not aware of the hiring plan.
Yeah, and Board Member Valencia, we do what we've done in the past, and that is with the services that we already have on campus and the referrals that we do what we can to offer that student services until we can get staffed elementary counselor at each of the schools.
So it sounds like in between time, we're making referrals to, I guess, outside of our school district resources. Is that correct? Or what do you mean?
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
Because the PPS credentialed counselors in elementary is new for this year. And so previously to this year and for those schools that still do not have a PPS credentialed counselor, it's really through the cost team, the coordination of services team that we acknowledge the student is referred to that team. We look and determine what is the need for that student, what are the areas of concern, and then that team matches to services. And then we have weekly meetings at cost. And so updates are presented on students' progress. And so that's kind of what we're doing to case manage for students in need at this time.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so very much.
Thank
The
you.
Board will acknowledge receipt of the SBIP grant and mental health supports as presented.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 12B, Visual and Performing Arts VAPA plan for 2022 through 2027.
Thank you. Our Ed Services team has worked over the last 3 years with various educational partners to prepare a visual and performing arts plan. And Ms. Grock is here this evening with Mr. Payne to present that to you.
Am I present? Good evening, board and cabinet and members of the community. Thank you for having us this evening. We are excited to present an update on our visual and performing arts plan and to take any feedback that you might have on that plan. So the plan that we have drafted covers from 2022 to 2027. It is in draft form and will be revisited frequently and adjusted as needed. I do want to start by saying that the plan that was linked in the board packet was the working draft, the audit of our needs, strengths, and weaknesses. And I apologize for the link not including the updated final draft. So we have given you a printed copy, and we are happy to answer any questions. But basically what we did is what you saw in the board packet was a list of current offerings or choices available to students in Santa Maria Bonita. We then analyzed that as a team to identify strengths and weaknesses. And then from there, we created the 5-year plan with a TK to 8 progression that we're going to discuss tonight and that we have provided to you. So I apologize for the confusion on the link. So the visual and performing arts plan was written by a work team that was created based on staff interest and us asking people to participate. The work was headed by our PE VAPA CTE TOSA, Mr. Kurt Payne, who is with us this evening. I worked on the team as well. And then our representatives on the team included Kelly Hargett, an instructional coach, Jessica Husselstein, a band teacher, Aaliyah Larson, a band teacher who is with us tonight. Thank you so much for your support. Andy Watson, a 3rd grade teacher, Joan Western, a visual arts elective teacher, and Sharon Ibarra, a principal. I will point out that we have taken this team, this plan to several other groups, including the principals and the instructional leadership teams to get their feedback as well. But this was the core team that did the work and drafted the plan.
So good evening. First time I get to speak to the board. So I'm pretty excited about that. So Kurt Payne, I am your teacher on special assignment for VAPA. We worked very, very hard as a team, but we did have a little bit of help in the 2017-2018 year. What I'm going to basically give you is kind of our progression as that VAPA work team and how we came up with what we're presenting for you tonight. So starting in 2017-2018, there was an initial skeleton plan that was put together by district staff, parents, as well as community partners. So we took that small amount of information that we had from our gap with COVID and kind of started in 21-22. We said, hey, we need to do some research on what has already been discussed, and then what are other school districts doing out there as far as their VAPA plans. So we initially, our big thing was deciding we are no longer an advisory team, we're actually a VAPA plan work team. So because at that time, we didn't have a plan to necessarily advise on. We spent quite a bit of time looking at standards for all 5 disciplines, doing a lot of research on particular school districts of various sizes throughout the state. We were blessed, San Francisco State Unified actually shared their rough draft of their current now approved VAPA plan for their 5 years, so that we could get a good idea of what we initially started in 2017 and 2018, where we headed in the right direction as far as that goes. Then we worked with state members of the California Arts Project on basically strategic planning and implementation and what that would look like. And then finally, at the end of our year, we were able to actually create our vision, mission, and focus areas. So that brings us to this year. And we've had a lot of work re-reviewing, kind of going through that particular framework, but we wanted to look at art integration. So the whole idea is we don't want to put more on our general education teachers. So where can we help support as far as not only art integration and where can we put it within the cores as far as that goes, but also where can we provide additional expertise, VAPA support and VAPA content teachers to actually help. So we identify gaps, and that's what you can see on your actual PDF document. So we were identifying what we had, what we still needed as far as work, and then began kind of that backwards design. We looked at our high school and where our high school VAPA pathways were at, and then started kind of backwards planning our scope and sequence, and then coming up with our draft VAPA plan that we're presenting tonight. So this is our mission statement. So the Santa Maria Bonita District is committed to preparing our students to engage in a diverse community, discover their passions and purposes, and develop the skills to reach their maximum potential. Every student is provided creative experiences that enhance their overall quality of life through music, dance, theater, visual, and media arts, with an emphasis on authentic participation in and appreciation of the arts. We have a student-centered culture that values the arts by providing every student with a comprehensive, high-quality, sequential, standards-based arts education that is inclusive of all cultures, provides equitable access, and focuses on the whole child. So that is what our group took. Other mission station and vision statements from other districts, but we looked at our own, and our most current one that Dr. McDuffie, we have now approved and began to blend and adapt our vision as well. So from that point, we looked at the standards and Ed Code, and our focus areas, we needed to identify particular focus areas within VAPA. So these are our 5 general areas of focus. So access to the arts, essential resources, curriculum and instruction, professional development, and community involvement and engagement. So just as a reminder for the board, those 5 disciplines, once again, are drama, music, dance, visual arts, and media arts.
Thank you. So as we started to create the scope and sequence and the master plan, we needed to pay special attention to specific considerations that impact our work and ability to provide VAPA to our students. So some of the things that we took deeply into consideration were the rooms and the space and the appropriate facilities for providing for VAPA. That is part of my mission serving on the Facilities Master Plan Committee, is to continue to surface the considerations that are needed for VAPA. We also needed to consider equipment and supplies, storage and workspace for the teachers, training and professional learning needs. And we really took into consideration the fact that teachers are at different places of comfort, both with VAPA as a whole and within the 5 domains. And so it became really important to create a plan that allowed teachers to share their passion and their skills in particular domains of VAPA, but also to get the support that they needed. For instance, I think I would probably do okay teaching dance, but if you asked me to teach a digital media class, I would be completely lost. I don't think that I would know anything about the software, wouldn't know where to start. So I'm in 2 different places, even within the VAPA plan itself. We needed to really acknowledge that all of our teachers are potentially in very different places and need different levels of support. And then we also had to consider what staffing was available, both externally from partnerships with things like Children's Creative Project and other artists, and then also considering our specialists within the system. So given all of those considerations and all of the strengths and weaknesses that we identified and the focus areas and the 5 disciplines, what we came up with the end of a lot of work was a scope and sequence that spans from TK to 8th grade, that covers all 5 of the disciplines, that identifies a potential provider, either the general ed classroom teacher, an outside contractor, or a content specialist, such as our band and music teachers now, or potentially a VAPA specialist job that you'll see in our work coming forward. And then it also identifies the level of exposure for the student, the key progressions. So a student could, at any grade level, at any time, have exposure to a VAPA domain as an experience, simply going on a field trip, being in an audience, having that role of just experiencing. Fundamentals, which are standards-based education or lessons being delivered about the domain. Strategies, which is when the teaching artists' lessons lead to a student-created product. And then application, when a student chooses to intensively study one element. So you can see that across all of our domains, we could provide all of these progressions. The example that I like to give is if a student went to an art museum and saw pointillist art, that's an experience. If they sat in a classroom and a teacher taught them the hallmark identifiers of pointillism, that's a fundamental. If they get out a piece of paper and a writing utensil and create a pointillist piece of art, that's a strategy. And if they spent multiple weeks really honing the craft of pointillism to the point that they could create an artistic showcase, that's an application. We wanted to make sure that we spread those experiences, fundamentals, strategies, and applications across the years and across the domains that we're offering to students in VAPA. And so that's the scope and sequence that we came up with. And so you'll see it in your packet. It's the last 5 pages, and it's all the pretty colors and all the boxes, and it is really, really overwhelming. But it's really kind of exciting. Like in 5 years, this could be completely realized so that a student in every grade gets all of those exciting opportunities. And we have created a system that supports the student and supports the teachers who are offering those arts to them. So it's a super exciting development, but it's also a little bit visually assaulting when you first look at it. So I apologize for that. I do want to review for you our next steps, and this is where our 5-year plan comes in. So next year, 2023, 2024, we will explore and arrange partnerships with artists through the Children's Creative Project and others. So we're going to start working with Children's Creative Project and other artist connections to identify where in the scope and sequence specific domains and disciplines fall and what artists might be able to provide those lessons to students. This will be co-teaching with classroom teachers. So again, that level of comfort for teachers. It'll be side-by-side learning for the classroom teachers. It will be a gradual release model. So, you know, a 5th grade teacher might need a couple of years with an artist before they feel comfortable enough to take that on all by themselves, and that's perfectly fine. It'll be based on a teacher request for support. So we're not going to tell a teacher that they have to have a side-by-side artist if they're already musically inclined and want to do music. If they already dance and want to do dance, it's really based on what the teacher requests and needs. And we will continue what we started this year, which was arts and dance lessons for all full day TK and K. That was kind of our entry point into providing VAPA during the school day. And we will continue to scale that up as we scale up our full day TK and K classes. In 23-24, we will also explore a job description for the K-6 VAPA specialist. This is really an exciting development that the work team is proud of. We sort of think of it in the same vein as the PE specialist that we offer now at all elementary schools. So we would be looking at creating a job description for VAPA specialists with the goal that at some point we would have 1 or more VAPA specialists per site delivering lessons that are strategically identified in the scope and sequence. We want to continue to enhance and support the VAPA at the junior highs through supporting teachers who are teaching electives, supporting them with curriculum, and also supporting the music and band electives. We will codify the experience level, that's the field trip audience role, by creating a menu of offerings and giving support to sites to engage in those offerings. So if we decide that an appropriate field trip for 1st grade is the Discovery Museum, then we want to make sure that every 1st grader in Santa Maria Bonita goes to the Discovery Museum. And so it's our job to forge that partnership with the Discovery Museum, to work on transportation, to provide the funding so that there's equity across all sites. So that first year, next year, we'll be working on codifying that experience level. We also want to provide professional learning to support adopted curriculum VAPA crosswalks. Then the next year, 24-25, we will finalize the job description for K-6 VAPA specialists and recruit and hire as space allows. We had originally had this as a 25-26, and everyone's so excited they really want to push up that timeline. So I don't know, maybe by the end of next year, maybe next year at the job fair, we'll be flying some of those if the job description goes through. We'll see how that works. We'll continue to enhance and support VAPA at the junior highs. We're going to codify the fundamentals level, that's the standards-based education and levels offerings, and process the program approvals so that we have those available to teachers who are ready to teach it. In 25-26, we'll continue to hire and place K-6 VAPA specialists, again, with the goal of having at least one at every site. We'll continue our articulation with the high school districts to make sure that our pathways continue to align with theirs. We will create pacing guides for adopted and approved programs, and we'll continue the professional learning, and again, continue to increase junior high specialist offerings. Oh,
I just have one question.
Yes.
In the 23-24 school year, provide professional learning to support adopted curriculum VAPA crosswalks. I'm not clear what exactly that means.
So we were very excited to learn that in looking at the core adopted district-wide curriculum, including ELA, math, science, and social studies, there are pockets that really lend themselves to some of the domains. So for instance, there are pieces of readers theater in several grade levels of both the ELA and the social studies curricula. And so what we want to do is kind of crosswalk where the VAPA scope and sequence hits the core so that we can call out for classroom teachers, hey, you're already teaching this. You already know this program. Just look to the right and see the readers theater and incorporate that into your classroom lessons.
That makes sense. I get that.
Yay.
That's been there. I mean, those things have been there for
yes, and not utilized as much as we would like.
Right.
Partly because of time, partly because of the need for training, and partly just because they've been overlooked.
Yeah.
So we want to support that. So that is the end of our formal presentation, but we are super happy to answer any questions or engage in any conversation that you might like to have around the VAPA master plan, the 5-year plan, and the scope and sequence.
Did you put anything in your plan about, building a new school or adding classrooms to the existing sites?
I do keep lobbying for let's throw a portable on every site and call it the VAPA room, put a kiln in there and a stage in there.
It's a very ambitious plan. And
yes,
if we are able to accomplish this, I would consider that to be extremely successful and a lot of fun.
I agree. And kudos to the work team, truly, because as much as I tried to be like the voice of reason in the room, I'm not sure we can do, they were like, no. We are building a dream model, and we will never achieve it if we don't build the dream model. So we're dreaming big. And I was super impressed with the work that they did on this.
I thought what was included in the board packet, the drafting, it gave all the indications of everything that is included in here. So I was pretty impressed with that.
Thank you.
I know, Mrs. Crock, in light of what you're saying, that one of the things a couple of districts have done is start big. Because if you don't have that expectation or that vision, what comes to fruition is pretty much a rehashing of what you already have, or a kind of a reorganizing of things that are already there. So I appreciate that thought process by the team. I guess I have a couple of questions. One, it would be for those teachers that do request to do, say I'm Andy Watson and I'm going to do ukulele, as we know he does. What kind of, how do we say, okay, well, you've met that standard in your classroom, you're good to go, versus giving them support or saying, I don't think you quite know much as ukulele as you think you do.
Would
Not
never
sorry,
tell
Andy.
Andy Watson ever. So I think a lot of that will be the work of the Vapatosa, really just lending that support, doing classroom visits, doing instructional practice walks, and identifying like, are you ready or are you not? And then really when we create that crosswalk and when we create the when we codify the levels, the experience, the fundamentals, that will call out to the teacher what we expect them to teach. So it won't be just turn Andy loose with 30 ukuleles, right? It will be, here's the music standards that you're hitting in your third grade. And if you choose to do that through ukuleles, this is what needs to be hit. And so there will be a progression that's called out for teachers, and a way for the principal, the administrator, the coach, the teacher, the students, the parents to really check in on that and see that they're getting the experience that fits the progression that we defined.
And I would encourage you to think even bigger and get rid of Kurt. I mean, as PE versus and VAPA and a bunch of other hats, and make that, I mean, not you particularly, people in the district, to make a Vapatosa.
So it's
VAPA.
interesting that you say that, because actually we are in the process of splitting the PE Vapatosa into 2 TOSAs. You saw earlier today how much our elementary sports have exploded. That's a huge level of work for Kurt, and now the VAPA as well. So we took it to cabinet and got approval, and it will, the position will split, and we'll have 2, a Kurt and a someone else, and one will be in each of those worlds. So we kind of did see that coming.
Yeah. And I again, thinking big picture and long term, I think that's the way to go for sure. So thank you for that. Yeah, no, I can share an integration of sorts. You know, at Miller School, 5th grade, there used to be a whale watching field trip. And the person would come into the classroom, do a lesson on marine mammals, then teach the students how to draw marine mammals and make their own different identification charts, and teach them how to be field biologists. And then the follow-up would be, after they drew that, they learned the lesson, they would go on the condor. So it's been done. So I think that's
Perfect example of integration. I love it. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Valencia, that was my contribution of Miller 5th grade. If you weren't privy to that, I'm just sorry. Just kidding.
You all had mentioned collaborating with Children's Creative Project. Is that correct? I'm wondering what their history is of effectiveness in working with our young people. You know, what we know, we have, multiple languages, including multiple indigenous languages. We have, working class, predominantly community, right? Over 90% of our students are Latino descent. And so does this organization or company have an effective track record of working with our young people?
Yes, they do. Children's Creative Project is a nonprofit organization based in Santa Barbara County Office of Education. It's an SBCEO partnership. They have a huge catalog that covers multiple assemblies, artists, and artists in residence that cover multiple ethnicities, multiple domains, and disciplines. We've been very happy with them. The problem that we've always run into is we don't have enough time in the day. There aren't enough instructional minutes to offer that. So finding a way to provide the crosswalk and get some integration into core subjects is, we think, really exciting. As far as impact and efficacy, I don't know that anyone did any studies like that with Santa Maria Bonita students. We've only had Children's Creative Project for the last 2 years, just in our TKK full day and in our extended day. So we would have some data on that at the beginning of the year, but a long history with Children's Creative Project and with SBCEO.
Yeah, I think it would be important to get some feedback, right, from our staff who've worked with some of them before, some of the different artists, from our students and particularly, right, how engaging is it, right, how relevant is it? So I think it would be good. Just as Mr. Hollinshead was mentioning earlier, whether it's Fighting Back Santa Maria or whatever the service might be, like, hey, how do we know that the services are effective? Because I have witnessed in the school setting, some folks, unfortunately, just their services aren't up to par with what we're looking for. And maybe those services might work effectively in another place, but maybe not necessarily for us. So that's why I want you all to make sure you keep that at the forefront.
Thank you for that note.
I also wanted to mention about the importance of making sure that we have culturally relevant and affirming, visual and performing arts. I'll give you an example. Like I think of groups like Teatro Campesino, right, the United Farm Worker Movement, and how these were farm workers, right, who essentially used theater, right. They weren't like studied experts in the field, but they basically use theater, right, as a way to empower, to educate. And so I want to make sure that the services that we're providing are culturally relevant. I was just thinking, as I was looking at some of the pages of the programming, I think a couple of weeks back, I saw something about like a DJ class that was being offered to our students, which is wonderful, right? Because we know that that's an art form that many people, gravitate toward. But I want to make sure that we're not just incorporating things like mariachi, which I did see listed here as an option. But I wanted to encourage things like a marimba band, right, which I did see as one item, just don't know how vast. I attended the Elks Parade, and the Rigetti High School Marimba Band were the winners, right, of the competition, if you will. And so we know that that's an area, right, where many of our young people gravitate towards, right, because the music is in English and in Spanish, and it incorporates different genres of music also. And so I think that that's going to be really key is hooking our kids with things that some of the stuff they'll recognize, and also hooking them into things that they might not be as familiar with, such as say capoeira, for example, right, which comes from more of a Brazilian, Afro-Brazilian tradition. So I want to expose them to that. And I also want to make sure that they see themselves reflected, right, in the arts. So I was thinking about things also like banda music, right? That's topping the charts, not just in our country, but around the world. And so, right, we want to make sure that our young people have access to the right instruments, the right instructors. Again, these are things, right, we know from research that when our young people engage in the arts, right, it's going to be another hook for them to come to school every day. And they tend to do better academically. And I'm pretty proud that us as a board, it seems like we prioritize the arts, right, where I don't, and as opposed to what sometimes happens where when funding gets cut, the arts are unfortunately some of the first things to go. And I definitely don't see myself as being in support of that. And so I want us to just make sure we keep those things at the forefront as we grow this work. I was thinking about things even like salsa and bachata and merengue. These are like types of music that are really popular with our young people. I would love to learn myself, right? How to engage, how to learn these wonderful dances. And it brings me back to my elementary school experience when I was in Guadalupe for a couple of years. I remember we did Foursquare when I was in elementary school. And mind you, I'm not against Foursquare. Foursquare is cool. I just can't remember the last time I saw like at a quinceañera, people Foursquaring, right? But I did see a lot of bachata. I did see a lot of banda, right? I did see a lot of other genres. So that's why I think it's so critical that we not overlook the importance of tapping into that relevancy for our young people. I also saw things like anime, which I think is really great, right? Because what I noticed as a teacher, when I use anime, it hooks a significant portion of my students. It just means that, but I'm not necessarily a huge anime person, but I know that I need to be intentional about that for my students. So these are the types of things that I think are going to be really critical as we move forward. And then my next follow-up question is, how can we build in the arts throughout the regular school day? Because I noticed that in the charts that you provided us, there was a lot of cool things available like after school or during summer, but we know that not all of our young people are available, for these summer programs. So what do you all think we can do to incorporate it into our school day so that it feels less of like an add-on type of vibe, right? As opposed to integral into the school day?
So I think the key for that, there are a couple keys. One is the integration with the core curriculum so that teachers don't feel like I have to stop social studies and start fine arts, but that it's integrated throughout the day. I also think really codifying those experiences so that across the district, all students get the same thing. There's really power behind all the first grade teachers having the same field trip and discussing it. And then it really becomes teachers feeding teachers. Like, this is how I incorporated it. This is what my follow-up activity was. And so it really does become integrated into the day. So I think that really focusing on the scope and sequence, and then making sure that we offer the support that teachers need and the outside supports when it's appropriate so that they do become part of the regular day without feeling like a burden.
We have the funding already built into, say, for our example, our LCAP or other areas where we have funding available for our staff to receive the professional training that they're going to need to feel more confident?
So when we started this journey last year, we were really leaning heavily into leveraging LCAP funding and what we might be able to achieve with that funding. And then Prop 28 passed, and it was like, it blew the roof off of our possibilities. So the Proposition 28 funding is really where we're looking to support all of this VAPA plan. And it is a sizable chunk of money that has been allocated by the voters in the state of California. And we are excited to spend that for them on our kids getting fine arts.
Nothing further. Okay. We'll acknowledge receipt of the Visual and Performing Arts Plan for 2022-2027 as presented. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Leah. I like to always say hello to Leah. I like to say hi, Leah. It's a nice place in Florida. We'll move on to item 13, new business ethnic studies.
Can we get a break?
Oh, sorry.
Can we get a break? No.
Yeah, we can do a break. Jennifer, I'm sorry. We're going to do a 5-minute break.
5 minutes. I really need to stand up.
Before the break or not? Oh, no, that's all right.
And we're back. New business, Ms. Loftus.
Yes, good evening.
Before Ms. Loftus, before you start, we do have one public comment on the new business item. Mary Jaffa,
Sorry to keep you so long, Mary.
Mea culpa. You aren't Superintendent Samuel, Sam Humphrey. I was thinking LCAP and I was thinking, Sam Humphrey was the one that was acknowledging that program. So please accept my apologies. So this agenda item that you're going to speak on today is new business is on ethnic studies. And of course, it's something that community, was really gung-ho at the high school level. And it was really difficult to get it passed. And through LULAC, the organization, we presented it at a conference and it went statewide. And so it put pressure on the state. So, but it is difficult. It's hard to grasp the importance, but we had and I can't remember the name of the city, but it's down by Orange County, I think. Ricardo, do you remember the name of the city where they came from there and talked about how they implemented the ethnic studies program and they found that it had increased attendance and academic learning too. Maybe because they're coming to school more often and getting it. I don't know. But anyway, it had a positive effect. And of course, to speak about the, well-being of our culture, understanding it, we become, better people. And our kids are the same. And they're better because they absorb everything. So I think that the discussion on ethnic studies at the elementary level, I think would be so important because, we need to keep them captured into learning, interested in learning. And when you learn about your culture, I went to elementary school in Guadalupe when I was grabbed and told English only because all I knew was Spanish. And when I was yelling to my friend, "Pega el columpio," and go after the swing, boy, by the time I was running and I was just boom. Luckily, my shoulder didn't get dislocated. I don't think. If it did, I never told anybody. But, it's really, you have to understand, as Ricardo and the rest of the board have indicated, and all the experts, there's a positive change and positivity, and that's what we want, especially with our diverse community. Primarily, in the school district right now, what is the percentage of Hispanic or Latinos? 90%? Yeah. So, we need to understand that. We need to understand that that is part of their growing up. That's part of getting to know each other. And, when you understand each other, even as adults, we had through an organization, church people union community. And, we were bilingual. We had to become bilingual. We had interpreters and to understand each other. And we got together and understood and loved each other. And we started working on education and housing. And that was back in mid-70s, So, when you understand each other and they have that pride, they know they belong, that they're understood. I'm all for that ethnic studies. So I'm glad to see that it was on new business, and I hope to continue hearing more about the wonderful stuff that you're doing. I mean, it isn't it's going to be new here to the elementary, San Maria Bonita, but it's not new in all school districts.
Thank you,
And
Mary.
thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Go ahead, Ms. Loftus.
All right, good evening. We have ethnic studies listed as new business. And so I thought I would provide you with just a brief update on where we are right now with our junior high classes. As I think you know, we piloted ethnic studies this year at Fessler Junior High. 60 students, 2 different classes experienced that year-long elective. We had a lot of good feedback, and we are expanding the ethnic studies class to all of our junior highs for next year. After talking with our principals, I found that each of the sites have anywhere between 1 to 2 classes as a year-long elective on their master board for next year. It is offered to both 7th and 8th grade students, and it fits in their elective band. We had some initial professional learning this year for the teachers who have signed up to teach ethnic studies next year, and we'll continue to support them, refine the course, reach out to the high school district to partner with some of the ethnic studies teachers at the high school district in order to align, enhance, and build upon what we have so far.
I understand, I believe you said that the teachers have worked together to build the curriculum. Is there a course of study available?
We do have a course of study. I have provided it in board memos in the past. I would gladly provide that again for you.
Okay, I apologize.
No apologies. It's been a work in progress.
Okay, I
Yes.
missed that. I'm usually pretty careful about looking, so
Miss-
sorry.
Mrs. Cordero, would that be something in the form of what's going to be at the inclusive of the junior highs this coming year rather than the development of what Fessler went through this year? I mean, you want to see the course of study for what's going to happen at our junior highs this upcoming year. I think we'd all appreciate that, Ms. Loftus. Thanks.
Absolutely. Happy to provide that. And again, we will continue to refine it as we go into the next school year based on teacher feedback and whatever we learn from our student feedback as well.
So is this offered as an elective for 7th graders? The class has 7th and 8th graders, or 7th grade has their own and then 8th graders?
It is 7th and 8th graders commingled.
Okay. And it'll be at all junior highs next year?
Yes, it will.
Cool.
We're excited for that.
So this was our first year at where was Fessler and
We designed it this
Mhm.
year for piloting at Fessler and tweaked it throughout the year as we were having that experience and getting feedback from the teacher and from students in the classroom. I know we have a long list of ideas to enhance what we do as we move into next year, really building in local speakers, inviting different individuals in to present to the students in the class as well.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Valencia.
Earlier, it was asked if there was like some curriculum that was available, right? You had mentioned the model curriculum from the California Department of Education. And they do have a specific section that looks at K to 12 guidance on approaching ethnic studies. Because we know that there's already school districts. I'm not sure if it's in Oxnard or Ventura, since they're a unified school district, right? They go from K to 12. They already have it and are implementing it not just at the high school level, but throughout the elementary and middle school level. So it is available for our elementary and middle school students, just as a clarification. And you had mentioned earlier that there was some feedback from some students about the course. What has been the response from the limited number of students that we've had so far and the staff that have been teaching it?
Anecdotal feedback from the teacher based on student feedback would just be that it was a very positive experience for the students. They learned things that they weren't already aware of. They learned a lot about themselves and about how to also position themselves in the world to make a difference based on what's important to them, what's important to their community. And it seemed to be very meaningful.
Did they say how it was meaningful?
Because it was helping them better understand how to have a voice, where they stand in society, what's important to them, how to advocate for themselves and for others in their community. That was empowering, which is what was most meaningful.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it's really wonderful, that we're talking about this, because it always exists at the high school level. We know it's a requirement at the community college, even at the university level. Different universities have what they call like an American cultures requirement, right? That require any student, whether they're an engineering major or, math major or history major, to take at least one course related to the study of, diverse cultures. So this is the part of the reason why I brought this up as an agenda item, is to see kind of where are we at, because, how many graduating eighth graders, for example, or how many current seventh and eighth graders do we have right now in our district? Do you know approximately?
Going to turn to other people who might have a better idea of the number. Close to 4,000, Mr. Riki says.
In the seventh and eighth, right? So if we do the math, of 60 out of, let's say 4,000, right? That means that by far less than 1%, right, of our students currently have access, right, to this empowering content. And I think it's really wonderful that we hear that this is affirming to our students, right? Because we know, right, when our young people see themselves, learn about others, then, it leads to, positive changes in themselves and for our community, which is very different from the rhetoric that we sometimes hear about these courses, right? We hear that they're divisive and that they're anti-American, and that's just inaccurate information when you actually take a look at what it's about. And what it's about is honoring the kids that are in front of us, right? With a special emphasis on the perspectives of Black and Latino, Asian, and Indigenous communities who are often on the margins of the traditional curriculum. So, that's part of the reason why I'm encouraging, right, our board and our staff, right, to support a resolution and to require ethnic studies, because it's unfortunately, sometimes that's what it takes to then build the momentum and the training and the funding so that our students have access to this content. Because for so long, our young people in a traditional educational setting have not been provided this empowering information that we know from research improves academic outcomes, like their grade point averages, their attendance, college going rates. So there's the research that supports this. And so, that's why it's sort of like, okay, so what are we doing to prepare our young people for this? So I want to, encourage our board to, support our staff to get the training, right, that they need to be able to teach these classes effectively. Because doing this work at the high school level, I've seen that when staff don't get the proper training, right, from folks who have been doing the work, they may have the best of intentions, but it's not gonna, be done with fidelity. So at the high school level, for example, we're collaborating with Cal Poly ethnic studies professors. And so they're looking at our curriculum and offering us guidance. So it's really essential that we get feedback from practitioners, right, with a proven track record of doing this work effectively, because it's really difficult for our staff to do, right? Most of our staff have not majored in ethnic studies. So we are asking them to update their skills, right, and to learn new things and to challenge themselves. That's what I get whenever I do professional development in this field. And I'm an ethnic studies major, right? So I'm a quote unquote expert in this field. And yet I know I have a ton to learn. And so that's why it's so critical that we set up our staff with professional development opportunities, and that we don't just have like one elective course, because we know, unfortunately, that many of our students will miss out on this opportunity if we leave it as an elective. So I want us to figure out ways to incorporate it throughout the curriculum, in English classes, in history classes, arts classes, right? So what if any is our vision towards that?
That is our vision, because if we were to think about making ethnic studies a required course, we would be taking away options from our children, because they have an elective opportunity and they would have to pick between band and ethnic studies or Avid Excel or any other variety of elective options that they have. Ethnic studies is one of those. And so our goal, our challenge is to look at the rest of our instructional day. We know that a lot is already integrated into our history courses. Maybe it's not yet as meaningful to our students as it could be. And so we do have an action plan that we've developed for the course of next year to really look at those standards and look at the curriculum that we have in front of our students, specifically ELA and history, starting with that, and looking to see where can we enhance, where can we bring in additional literature, additional picture books, additional lessons, things that are organic to the learning, but also relevant to the students in the classroom.
And I, when reflecting on this, I thought back to a program that we had several years back at Taylor on diversity presented by one of the other, I think, were you the principal there then? Presented by one of the school districts from the Southland. And it was really more what they found was reflected more in their curriculum, and the integration of the ideals in their curriculum was the diversity aspect of things, rather than being solely reflective of the community that you're in, reflecting on all the communities and diversity, and that appreciation for other humans, what there could be art, it could be any number of those things. And that was really what helped them to have a very effective and demonstrative change in the attitudes of their students, and also the accomplishments and successes. So I think we need to be really thoughtful and intentional about including diverse aspects of art and literature, and any number of things. And certainly we can be inclusive culturally and diversity wise in math and science as well. But I appreciate the fact that that teaching and learning has looked at that integration across the curriculum, because I think you're right. I think, one of the things we saw or we've talked about is that in order to accommodate those requirements at the high school level, they have dropped things. Fortunately, it wasn't anything to some that they felt was integral, but to others maybe so. But I think that's a great point for our limited time that we have our 7th and 8th graders choosing specific designated classes rather than being in a all-day class like they are in now TK6. So I appreciate that thoughtfulness.
I think I would relate it to the conversation earlier with integrated versus designated ELD. We have a period of time during our day that we provide specific ELD instruction, but that's just a small portion of the day. You get so much bigger bang for your buck through integrated, what happens all day long. And so, yes, we will capture the hearts of some children who choose to sign up for ethnic studies because that is what they are drawn to, but we can't leave it at that. We have to look at our entire day. We need to provide our students with both mirrors and windows, to your point. They need to both see themselves in their teachers and in their curriculum, and also beyond, opening up the world to them so that they are able to relate to and understand other cultures.
I appreciate that y'all are looking into right now the where are we currently at, right? So how often do our young people actually see themselves reflected in the curriculum? Because it's sort of like, hey, what if, 90% of the day, our young people are exposed, right, to Black and Indigenous and Latino history, unlike, previous generations. But if that's not the case, if we're still replicating the status quo, then, okay, what are we doing to alter that? And I don't necessarily see the ethnic studies requirement as like limiting our young people, right? Because unfortunately, our young people have no choice whether they take math or science, right? Whether they love those classes or hate those classes or PE, they got to take them, right? And so our community is saying, hey, this is a priority. Just like we value math, just like we value science, we value our young people learning about diversity and embracing diversity. In fact, that's one of our mission and beliefs, right? Is the strength in our diversity. Because unfortunately, there are folks in our society that see that as a weakness of our country, and it's the antithesis of that. So these are our values. So therefore, how do we live our values? And unless it's intentional, then it's not going to necessarily happen. So this is why I would love to receive like a quarterly update or, of some sort. Where are we at? What have we discovered? What have we found? What trainings have our teachers gone to? Develop a needs assessment, right? What do they need? And I would love to see some type of vision, just like we saw for our visual and performing arts, right? What is our plan to ensure that our young people have exposure and access to this diverse curriculum?
Yeah, and I think without continuing to overburden or have staff do something on a fairly regular basis, quarterly, something like that, that's comprehensive and or any of the degree of depth that we would want to see. I think it's up to us as board members to go and seek out that information, not in this forum, but go to people, the genesis of where it's coming from, the schools, the teachers, the people in teaching and learning, and find those things out, right? Where the presentations are a part of that. But part of our work as board members is to go find that information out, to talk to the people on the campuses, to talk to students, to talk to the people who now in this particular discipline are developing that curriculum and see where they're at. I mean, there has to be some onus on us to do some of the legwork, some of the groundwork, because there are a lot of other parts to the curriculum, and there are a lot of other presentations and other information that we need to be given. And one of the things with new business is that we're talking about this probably to a greater length than we would have anticipated. It could be easily been a discussion item, right? But new business is evolving. But part of that is going to be, okay, where do we see this information being presented us in a timely fashion? We're already getting the curricular information that Ms. Cordero asked for. Where is it in the annual calendar, or where is it in the school year that we can have, say, a check-in for, like you're saying, maybe a temperature check? How are things? How are people feeling with that are in the classroom, because it's going to be a first year, right? So I think part of those things is there's an evolution to it. So I don't know that the information either is going to be really concrete as they develop it, because the curriculum is in development. So if you being an expert, I think that's perfectly okay for you to go in and suss those things out with teaching and learning, or even the core staff, or who are developing that, and do our due diligence. But I think when you guys can confer with us, Ms. Loftus, as to what you think would be, after talking to your team, an optimal time to present that update and temperature check. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, Vice President Holland said, and I was just going to say that I would be able to get that information and then speak with you about when that would go on the board calendar for us to be able to present. I also want to just say this, that we are able and willing to provide information as we can to the board. But I also want to say as well, when we talk about priorities, when we talk about where we're moving forward, our strategic plan has 4 strategies, I believe, that we will be working toward action plans that will involve the community here in Santa Maria Bonita. And so when we talk about priorities, the things that we're doing already with expanding our ethnic studies classes to all of our junior high schools, as we look into and as we evolve in making sure that those things are integrated into our elementary ethnic studies, and the concepts are integrated into our elementary schools, that it's important that we and the staff still have these focus areas that we apply that's relative to our strategic plan. And so, again, we're able to do all of that. But as we talk about new business, as this agenda evolves, when we provide the information, then if we can talk about maybe where that goes on the calendar. And as we present and as we create these action plans, being able to just, it's the time element when we talk about, and you spoke to it well. If we're just beginning with the classes, it needs time to, to come back to the board in 3 months and say, hey, this is the information. It may not be, it may not be ready. And you're having staff working on multiple things at that time. And it may just not be effective. And so I'll be able to provide you with a board calendar as well, so you can see what we have coming up. But also in regards to, I just want to let the board know we will begin action planning on our strategies, which will be really priority for our staff to move forward with what we have in our mission statement and our strategic plan. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Ms. Loftus.
Thank you.
I guess we can move on to board and superintendent reports, I believe. Ms. Cabral?
Happy solstice. We missed it. So, yeah, nothing much going on. I did go to the Pride event for the House of Pride and Equality event a couple weeks back. It was very well attended. There was a lot of families. There was resources, and I had a lot of fun. Other than that, I'm working.
I will just comment that our 8th grade celebrations were a bit unusual this year due to the fact that we had quite different weather. I don't remember having the school year end and graduation celebrations, etc. I think Tuesday when we had ours was the only day that it actually rained on one. But usually the weather is sunny and windy, not rainy. But in spite of that, our families came out and our students were excited. And personally, I don't know that they all were using very much common sense, because when it came time for them to come and walk up, they took their jackets off and some of them were absolutely freezing. I felt bad for them. Our summer school is up and running. I'm visiting all the sites this week. I was at the junior high today, and lots of very small classes, but some very interesting lessons that I was able to see that required student engagement. And I'm going to visit the other two and stick around for the afternoon expanded learning opportunities in the afternoon to see what's going on there too. And softball with my granddaughter.
I also had the privilege of attending the Pride event hosted by the House of Pride and Equality, which I believe was last Saturday, not this past, but the one before. And I believe there was approximately 1,000 community members in attendance. And so it was a wonderful, showing of families, communities, allies, folks that identify as LGBT and lots of other identities. And I think it was really special, like one of the speakers alluded to, seeing young children, they learn from us, right? They learn their prejudice from us, and they also learn their acceptance from us. And so seeing those young people just really enjoying the entertainment, right? Just families hanging out, friends hanging out. It was a really wonderful example of just our of what unity looks like in our community. I'll share from a personal note that unfortunately, I was not raised in an environment that was so inclusive. You know, when I was growing up, I was actually taught to believe in prejudice against the LGBT community. And then, you know, I learned, you know, I grew, I evolved, right? I made friendships, I read, just it's amazing to me how just by having conversations, right, and by taking being open to learning, how it makes us, you know, better human beings, more accepting human beings. And so I love that. And I think, you know, part of that was my education, but also part of that is just, you know, being open, right, to the humanity of others. So I had a wonderful experience, and I invite, you know, all of you folks, if you haven't had the opportunity to experience Pride either in our community or elsewhere, you know, check it out. And see what it's about, because it's all about love and it's all about acceptance. I also wanted to just conclude by reminding our staff how important it is to take a break this summer. I know that we have different break schedules. I know that for many of our maintenance and operations staff, this is some of their busiest time, you know, cleaning up our classrooms. And so major props for all the moving and cleaning from, you know, from our custodial staff. Thank you for making those meals for our young children. For our bus drivers and all the staff, right, which we often, you know, sometimes inadvertently overlook. Thank you very much for all your hard work. We appreciate you, and we hope that you all get some good rest and spend some quality time with your families. Thank you.
Yeah, that's you know, very much. There's a lot going on. I've been to Rice and Miller, and the campuses are they have a lot of dirt being moved around and a lot of stuff being dug up. I got calls from neighbors about what's going on at Miller School. Preserve our backstop at Rice, those kinds of things. But and we knew that was coming. So that's all great to see. And it is good though to hear the outside voices of kids at the different summer school campuses. That's always a joy, because for whatever reason they seem to be having a good time. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know. But yeah, so that's I think and thank you to those who do give their summers and give to our kids during the summers, not just the folks from outside agencies, but our teachers that commit to that and do such a wonderful job. That's super important stuff. And to those, like Mr. Valencia said, who are enjoying time off, enjoy your time off. Feel free to bring dolphins, bulldogs, and other various animals from your menagerie back to the dais when you come back.
All right. Well, it is June 21st, and it's summer, right? It is officially summer. So I really do echo the words of encouraging folks to relax and to get some time to just rejuvenate and enjoy your family and friends. Congratulations again to Oakley Dolphins. I'm excited about the coming year. And before I get too excited, I'm gonna get some rest myself and try to get some time with my family. So just really quickly, on Thursday, June 29th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Santa Maria Police Department, the Community Academy will hold its final meeting and a graduation celebration for the parent and community participants. The Community Academy is a collaboration between our Family Engagement Department and the Santa Maria Police Department to conduct the first Spanish and Mixteco language outreach and communications program about the police department. In a joint effort with our education partners at the Santa Maria Joint Union High School District, parent leaders from our DLAC, Migrant, and Mixteco Advisory, and other leadership committees were recruited to participate in this 8-week academy. Over the course of the past 8 weeks, participants have had the opportunity to learn about various units within the police department, forensics, SWAT, K9, And the SMBSD parent leaders also met with Police Chief Mark Schneider for a question and answer session on On Thursday, the 29th. The Community Academy will come to a close and celebrate with dinner and recognition of the participants. A special thanks to Lieutenant Lara and Sergeant Diaz of the Community Services Unit for creating a welcoming and engaging environment for our SMBSD parents. We look forward to continuing our collaboration with these partners to build a stronger, kinder, and more connected community. And on the 30th, that Friday, is it this Friday or next? Next Friday. We will have our Human Resources Job Fair here at the Sousa Center. Isn't that right, Dr. Bland? All right, so candidates will be able to apply, test, and in many cases, interview for positions all in the same day. Pat's jobs fairs have been very successful. We expect this one to be as well.
What time?
What time? Is it all day?
So on Saturday, the 1st. 9 to 2.
Very good. 10 to 8 Friday, 9 to 2 on Saturday.
Carlos bringing chicken and waffles.
I hope so. Is he here?
No.
That's all I have.